Tanya was diagnosed with scleroderma, and she can give you more of the details with that. And she was working full time, had a fantastic job, and cannot work now. She had to quit work because of the scleroderma. So she's moved from Vegas in to be with my husband and I. And so she's knows an awful lot about it. It's very, very hard, but she's very strong.
What is scleroderma?
It is an autoimmune disease where the body attacks itself, and in scleroderma, the Greek meaning of it is sclera is skin, and sclera is hard, and derma is skin. So the common thing is it affects the skin. In about 70 to 95% of cases, it involves the skin, but it also it can involve the organs. There's a lot of different types of scleroderma, and so it can affect the blood vessels, the gastro tract, any organs. Basically, there's nothing it can't affect.
So how did you find out that you had this? What was that like?
The symptoms started, it took about 6 years to diagnose it, which I find now is not very uncommon, because the symptoms kind of show themselves very slowly, and they're very common symptoms of a lot of other disorders. So mine started with a lot of fatigue, and it started with not being able to digest food very well. I started having a lot of problems when I would eat. I would get bloated, nauseous. It would last for days, depending on which foods I ate. And so instead of trying to learn the triggers or educate myself to find out what was wrong, I went to the doctor. They put me through all the gastro tests. At that point, nothing had really showed up, so I got discouraged, and I just started basically not eating. I was living off protein drinks, bananas, eggs, very limited, lost a lot of weight, which made me even more sick. After more tests, I did finally find out that I had delayed gastric emptying, which it affects how your stomach digests the food and passes it along. So the stomach the food stays in your stomach a lot longer. So that was the first thing, but they still didn't know what was causing it. You can just have that apparently without it being from scleroderma. So it just goes from that, and so there's really no way of medicating that or dealing with that. Have to change your diet, foods, stay away from foods that are hard to digest, find out what your triggers are. After that, it became, of course, a fatigue, and then a little bit of shortness of breath. Still nothing real major. So I went to my family doctor, she was wonderful, and she just had an inkling from just those couple symptoms, and she ran some basic blood tests, but you have to check for an ANA. It's called ANA, and if it shows positive, it doesn't mean you have scleroderma, but it means that you are testing positive for an autoimmune disorder.
Yeah, it's a precursor, right?
Yes, exactly. So, and some people can test positive for that and not have an autoimmune disorder. Some people can have an autoimmune disorder and test negative. Exactly. But it tipped her off, and she sent me to a wonderful rheumatologist who I still see now 7 years later. And he took that information, did more blood work, because there's more extensive blood work that goes along with that to give the diagnosis plus my symptoms. Mixed connective tissue disease is kind of along the same thing. It's lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, scleroderma, it's all of that combined. So it's very easy to be misdiagnosed. I was misdiagnosed at first. I was told lupus, I was told mixed connective tissue disease. Finally, when I got to him and he did the right test, he said it's just scleroderma, it's not the rest of them, which is bad enough. And then I started getting Raynaud's. Raynaud's is blood vessels. My blood vessels are the main thing that's being damaged. So Raynaud's, which again you can have without scleroderma, but it's also very, very common. It's as common as skin involvement. Those are the two very major common things that get attacked with scleroderma.
What's the treatment?
There's no cure, unfortunately, right now. That's why we want to keep getting the word out. They've been fighting for 15 years to find a cure. So it's kind of relatively new, if you look at it that way. All they can do is treat each symptom, and it doesn't really cure it. It can kind of slow down the process, but the main thing is protecting the organs, because kidney, lungs, those are also very much the heart. Those are all involved, and the body is producing too much collagen. So with collagen, of course, that is supposed to be in your body, but not to the enormous amount that the body produces with scleroderma, which makes things harden, things that aren't supposed to harden. So that makes all the blood vessels and all of the smooth muscle if it can't move, it can't function. Your lungs have to be able to move, everything has to be able to move.
So you're not able to work at this point. What kind of work were you doing?
I was a housekeeping supervisor at the Silverton, and I had worked my way up there, and it was a lot. The physical part is one thing, But if you talk to anybody that has scleroderma, even the doctors will acknowledge that the emotional roller coaster and the giving up your independence is the worst thing, because you have a whole new life now.
You've had this for several years. It's progressing?
Yes, it is definitely a progressive disease. There is no way to stop it from progressing. So that's why with scleroderma, you have to have a rheumatologist, which is in charge of your, well, at least with me, is in charge of my main health. And then he'll send you out to different, like when my heart was being affected, they sent me to a heart doctor, which I have a great cardiologist here in Pahrump. Thank God, he's a blessing. And then if your lungs are affected, they send you to a lung doctor. So you have to have a whole team of doctors to treat. There's not, like the rheumatologist can't just give you one pill for the whole thing, each body part.
What is this like for you and your husband, seeing your daughter go through this? How old are you?
I'm 44.
And she works out all the time, so
Yeah,
she's looking for you.
Hi.
And she does this because she's really into trying to do something good for herself. But it's very hard. It's very emotional when
It is difficult.
about it.
How many children do you have?
I have 2, and then I have a stepson. And she has 4 children.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Very difficult on my kids.
Yeah.
Very difficult. Matter of fact, I'll cry if I talk about them. But they've been amazing support. They're all grown. And one's in the Army, and the other 3 live in Vegas. And without them, I mean, it gets the purpose to keep, you know, when I have down days and they send me messages, that's what I need.
Are you guys going to groups to get some help with the whole family? Because this is really difficult, finding out about this and knowing that the grandchildren are affected, and how heartbreaking is that to go through this. Are you getting help for that?
I'm involved with the Scleroderma Foundation, sending me different things on emails, and then Tanya's involved with a lot. Basically, my help, and it's hard, probably unbelievable to say, is Tanya, because her strength gives me strength.
Yeah.
You know, and only when I start talking about like this or to some other people, and I try not to do it with her, but she is just unbelievable, and her kids are unbelievable. I mean, she's got 3 boys and a girl, and
But no, we haven't done any family counseling. I am on a Facebook page that's it, because sometimes it's easier to talk to people that you don't really know but have scleroderma, because we all have the same fears, we all have the same things. I mean, it affects everybody differently, but yet the emotional part of it's all the same. No matter what the physical part is, the emotional part's the same. So we can kind of relate, and we don't worry each other. Like, I try not to talk to my kids about it. I try not to talk to my family or friends too much because it worries them.
Yes.
But with this, you have like a safety zone where you can talk and say how you feel, and nobody's going to get scared or judge you, and they're all going to have the understanding of it.
So there is places for people to go who've been diagnosed with this, and you've also are going to make your email address available for people if they would like to contact you.
Definitely, because I know how it feels. Like, I got diagnosed officially in '08, but I've been having symptoms since like '04. So it's been a long journey, and until I found these groups online, which I still would like to find a personal group where you can go physically and talk to people, but it's been a big lifesaver. And so people don't know where to turn, and they hear the word scleroderma. When I heard autoimmune disease, I didn't think autoimmune disease was a big deal. I really didn't know, and it's scary. And so if people want to email me, I mean, I can offer support. I can offer what I know, what I've experienced, and what I've read. People should definitely Google it, because there's a lot of information out there. Like I said, it affects everyone differently. So you're going to read things that are the most mild, where it just affects the skin and it's more of a cosmetic problem. And then you're going to read the stories to where it can be fatal. But there's so much in between, and it's just so individualized. But the Scleroderma Foundation, if you go to scleroderma.org, they have a wonderful page, and you can subscribe to the newsletters and then you can hear other people's stories. You can read the symptoms. But basically, the symptoms are so little. My suggestion is, if anybody is having even mild, it usually starts with the skin or the gastro. So if you're having gastro problems and your doctor's testing you and you're getting diagnosed with things, but there's no reason why, or certain, like I was in my 30s when I got diagnosed with this, and or before I got the diagnosis, I started having the symptoms, and I thought I had been healthy up till then. Now all of a sudden I'm falling apart. It just seemed like too many things were going wrong, and the common denominator was the scleroderma.
And you really have to take charge of your own medical help there, and keep keep pushing that.
Pushing it, because a lot of doctors aren't even that informed. You have to getting a good rheumatologist that studies it and knows a lot about scleroderma is the very most important thing. And then he can refer you to whatever specialist you need. Mayo Clinic has a really good scleroderma department, so does UCLA, I've heard. I've never been fortunate enough to be able to go, but they have all sorts of trials and things.
And trying out new things, and there's always new things coming through for
Exactly.
autoimmune diseases because of the fact that this is something that is really coming to the forefront. A lot of people are finding out more and more about it.
Yes.
What's your email address?
Akers, Tanya, AKERS, TANYA @ yahoo.com.